You really have to look forward at least 5 years, 10 years in order to gauge what's the demand going to be in 5 years, 10 years time.
Wow.
And then position yourself accordingly.
Hello, Next Gen fam, and welcome back to another special edition of Mentor Momentum with Next Gen HQ. Before we dive in, I got to give some huge shout outs to Leo, Douglas, Isaac, and the entire InvestKH team. We are so proud to be partnering with InvestHK and help fintech startups expand their operations to Hong Kong. You got to check out their global fast track event, which is focused just on this, helping you, the next gen entrepreneur, expand to the international market of Hong Kong. We'll make sure all of the links are in the show notes, but such an honor to be partnering with this incredible team. All right, let's get into it because I am beyond excited to welcome this week's guest. He is a true leader in the fintech space. Today, we are welcoming King Leung to the Mentor Momentum stage. King has been a government leader, an entrepreneur, an angel investor, lecturer, and is now the head of fintech at InvestHK. I don't know how he does it all, but in his current role, he's working to attract that entrepreneurial ecosystem to expand in Hong Kong. And we have so much to talk about. So I'm going to shut up. We're going to get right into it. King, thank you so much for joining us on Mentor Momentum.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's just such an exciting time that I just can't help but to share my excitement and all these great discoveries with your audience.
Yeah, let's dive right in with some of the stuff that you guys are creating. Obviously, we have this global fast track event coming up. Talk a bit about that and how our audience can get involved, why they should be thinking about Hong Kong, why is all of this stuff, now and has been super important, but why should the next gen entrepreneurs be thinking about it?
Well, at the end of the day, it's actually a very simple answer. When you think about, first of all, fintech, there's always the B2B and B2C. Now, a lot of times, a lot of the entrepreneurs that we've been meeting have been focusing in the next gen B2B solutions. I mean, it can be for the banking sector, the insurance, even the digital asset space, and so on. Now, you think about B2B. Obviously, a lot of the fintech companies are selling to major financial institutions. That's then naturally places where there are lots of FIs would be a good place to go. And then you think about the major international financial centers. You think about New York, you think about London, and as you basically count your fingers, Hong Kong will always be in your first count with one hand, right? So therefore, it's a no-brainer for the entrepreneurs to think about Hong Kong as a destination, particularly if they are in B2B fintech. Yeah.
Why do you think most young American entrepreneurs maybe aren't thinking about this right now? What is kind of if in your mind, what do you think people are thinking when they're like, oh, I need to stay San Francisco, that's the place to be? Why should they also be thinking about maybe even starting in a place like Hong Kong, or at least having it be one or two on the list? Like you said, it could be in that list, but I think you guys are saying it should be first thing you think about. It should be the kind of first mover, given the incredible work that you guys are doing.
Well, at the end of the day, obviously, I think the Bay Area is amazing. I got a lot of good friends there. People are doing amazing things. Now, but at the same time, I guess I have to relate that to a recent experience that I had with my son. My son's 17 years old, a high school junior, applying to college. Now, obviously, for a young teenager, of course, he wants to go to Stanford, right? Now, but at the same time, there's only one Stanford. So you always want to basically hedge your bets, right? In terms of spending eggs, basically finding a place that you have a good fit. At the same time, you can stand out among your competition. Okay, so again, the same thing applies to startups. Bay Area, great, but at the same time, the competition is enormous, right? So then you would want to basically place yourself in a place where you can really stand out. Now, again, when you look at the financial centers around the world, where else would you want to go, right? Other than the New York, the London, the Hong Kong, maybe Singapore, and so on. There's only so many major financial centers. So again, to us, when we talk to a number of entrepreneurs, walk them through the facts, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I think the story you make, it enlightens it so much for me, right? Where it's like your son, yeah, obviously Stanford is up there, but like you said, everybody's trying to get into Stanford. There's one Stanford, but if you can think about how you be like everybody that's going to Stanford, but apply somewhere else, now all of a sudden you have a competitive advantage, which in the startup space is exactly what you're looking for. How can you not just be different, but how can you be different and better? And I think you guys are honing in on that. What in your mind is exciting to you about the future of the fintech market broadly? What are you guys thinking about when it comes to future of fintech, and what is kind of coming down the pipeline that's exciting to you?
Well, I guess there are two streams, to be honest. Now, one stream is the exciting, the sexy part, right? The other stream is the more practical, but also desperately needed space. So let's start with the sexy stuff. Now, obviously, when you think about the digital assets and all these headlines of companies becoming unicorn, it is exciting. At the same time, the whole DeFi space, a lot of innovations is happening, and there's no clear definition about what the future looks like. And that in itself is basically very exciting, right? Because you are in a position to create the future. Now, so actually for us, we are working with a good number of digital asset firms. Some of them are doing blockchain, cross-border payment stuff, running on stable coins, for example. Yeah. Right. So that's interesting. Now, it's not just us, right? It's some of the leading banks. I'm talking about the mainstream banks are also experimenting all this kind of stuff. Now, of course, there's also the NFTs, right? Which is really grabbing a lot of headlines. In fact, there's one company called Animoca Brands. We're very proud of them. They just became a unicorn. Wow. The first NFT unicorn company in Hong Kong, literally a few months ago. So again, there's just so much excitement going on in the digital asset space. So that is in itself is a very exciting times. Now, the other aspect are the more practical stuff. So obviously the whole banking sector, the insurance sector and so on are undergoing enormous transformation. And naturally, as the banks and the big boys transform themselves, they need some help, right? So this is where the fintech solutions come in. So from regulatory technology, I think the banking as a service, you name it. So there's just so much room for all these big boys to really rearm themselves. So again, a lot of B2B opportunities.
Yeah, King, can you talk to us for a second about your journey and how you got to where you are now at InvestHK? I know you've done so many things, from CEO to working in the government to angel investor to lecturer. How did you kind of get to where you are at InvestHK, and why is this kind of the place that you think the world should be looking at right now?
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I'm a pretty adventurous person by nature. So naturally, I'm not just happy to just doing one thing. And then I basically evolved. I did, in fact, several startups. And then I went on to try my hand as an angel investor, as you pointed out. And then after 2 years, I realized that my pocket wasn't deep enough. You need really deep pockets to be a good angel. So then I thought, well, maybe I need to meet and have deep relationship with people with deep pockets. Again, as I was thinking about it, after a while, and I to be honest, at the time, I never thought about joining governments. And somehow this head of fintech position came up. I was like, wow, so this is great. It's almost like the law of attraction thing. I kept thinking, boom, it happened. So then I joined the governments, and this is great, a great marriage. That basically is a position that I can really use all the skill sets and experience, connections I've built up in the past 2 decades, and now put in good use to help the government and also Hong Kong as a financial center.
Wow. You talk about something that was in your LinkedIn bio that you say you could constantly reinvent yourself, which I think, you're talking to an audience, and I'm sure some conversations maybe with your son of like, at this age, you're like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do for the rest of my life today. And, I think you've done so many different things. What advice would you give to this next generation that's like, hey, I think I need to figure out exactly what I need to do today?
Well, in fact, I've been asking that same question too. So I like to learn from people who have been there, done that. In fact, there's one direction that really like, it was given to me by someone probably like 10 years older than I am. And this gentleman, again, I was a CEO, or serial entrepreneur. And he said, you know what, you really have to look forward at least 5 years, 10 years in order to gauge what's the demand going to be in 5 years, 10 years time.
Wow.
And then position yourself accordingly. Now, along the way, always be cognizant of the demand supply equation. Now, so obviously, okay, for example, coding in Python is great, but then there are just so many people who understand or who know how to code Python. So the supply side is not in your favor, right? In a way, there's just so many people around the world, like Sri Lanka, Poland, Portugal. I mean, they can be anywhere. So the competition is quite fierce, right, from a supply standpoint. But then what about, let's say, space, right? Now, so again, I think US is in a great position that, again, it has the most advanced space program on the planet. And somehow, again, think out loud, if your audience can get them into like some sort of space-related areas, and who knows, right? In 5 years' time, 10 years' time, Elon Musk will be on Mars. So there will be some new businesses, inspiring new kind of entrepreneurs. So space is something that would be on the map in the next, 10 years, 20 years. So by year 2050, people are living on Mars.
Yes, so it's about finding the balance between supply and the demand, right? As we continue to have new things come up, go to the places where not a ton of people are, but where there's a lot of potential upside, right? Is I guess kind of the advice.
Yes.
When obviously you've spent some time now, the work you're doing now, back when you were an angel, even though, you said the pockets might not have been deep enough. What were some of the biggest mistakes you were seeing from founders when they would either come pitch to you, or now working with so many founders in the capacity you are now? What do you think are the biggest mistakes that founders are making today?
Well, I guess if I were to summarize it, I would say that probably three simple things. Now, first, most founders that I met, well, first of all, to put in context, even at my current role at Invest Hong Kong, probably in the past 2 years, I met with or came across as part of my team, interaction, probably over 1,000 fintechs around the world. Wow. Okay, so it's a lot, right? So of course, not everyone I would get a chance to really know in depth, but at least I got a good sense of what they do. Now, but then I think based on the one thing that's so common is that, but by the way, a lot of these founders are super smart people, right? Ex-bankers with top firms, highly intelligent people from good school and everything. But the one thing that is so common is that they don't spend enough time to look at the competition or the space that they're going in. So typically I just ask the simple question, oh, by the way, so for what you do, who are your competition? So how do you stand out against the competition? And they'll be like, well, actually, we are very unique. We are the only one doing this. I was like, are you sure? There are lots of smart people on this planet. So this is one thing that I guess the folks are just so absorbed, right, into doing the thing, working on products and all that, and somehow they lost track about the broader scheme of things. So competition, know them really well. So this is one. Now, secondly, obviously, when you pitch, you really have to understand what your worth is, right? Of course, I think American culture in particular, people are very confident, right? Great, great kind of a vision and everything. But then there's a price, right? The investor, because they've seen so many deals, there's always a price that they're willing to pay. Anything about it, they say, you know what, it's a great company, but it's too pricey. So by understanding, what kind of valuation is the valuation people are willing to pay is important. So a lot of times, a lot of folks on the business plan I've seen, they really overestimated their worth, and sometimes they just basically, have an empty bag by asking too much, right? So that's number two. And last but not least, particularly in fintech, amazingly, many of the folks that we met, again, these are like former bankers and everything, they talk well, but then when it comes to pitching for, let's say, like a solution kind of pitching, they're not as good anymore. I guess it has something to do with just the way that they used to be talking. And somehow the pitch is not succinct, right? We want to sell like a new technology, let's say to a bank. Now, even if this is really the greatest thing since sliced bread, but you have to speak in a way that the people would understand what exactly that is. But a lot of times the pitch would be like, about technology. Oh, this is so great.
Yeah,
We got like all these like scientists, PhDs, and just like talking over people's head. So people just don't connect. So in the end, the BD side of things are not very favorable. So being able to talk in layman terms is also very important.
Yeah, I love it. It's be able to understand your competition, which I think you're right. A lot of people are like, oh, we're the most unique startup in the world. Nobody does what we do. Being able to talk in a way to your customers and pitch to your investors in a way that they understand you, and then knowing your worth. Like you said, the second one, knowing your worth, being able to understand, hey, how much is this company actually worth? If you're talking now to a first-time founder who hasn't done anything yet, they're thinking about getting into the fintech space, what's one piece of advice you would give to them as they're just getting started before they maybe have all of these problems already?
Well, build a team, right? Build an all-round team. Now, obviously, in today's world, we are like racing against time. And even any single person, however smart he or she is not enough, right? It's going to be a combination of skill sets. And obviously for the investors too, right? They're looking at you to bet on you. And the only way they would do that is that you have a very solid team, right? Covering all the bases, okay? So first thing to do is really trying to map out what are the kind of skills you need from your other founders. Now, again, sometimes you may not have like an all-star founding team with like 5, 6, top-notch people. Well, but even getting a few, good people, right? Experienced people as advisors, right? Just to beef up your team slide, right? So that's important because I think at the end of the day, there's only so much 1 or 2 people can do. You need like a bigger team to bring trust.
Yeah. What do you think about when you're building out your own teams in the past, now at InvestHK? What are the things that you look for in a good team member?
Well, the one thing that I noticed is that when I was younger, because I did my first startup when I was in my early 30s. And at the time, I was like, you know what? I need all the best people, like the sharpest people. So, it's sort of like a basketball, because I'm a big basketball fan. So in a basketball analogy, you want to put, like 5 Michael Jordan on the same team. So that wouldn't work. You would have 1 basketball, right? So you need people who shoot the ball. You need someone who rebound the ball, right? Doing dirty work, sending picks. So you really need like a complementary skills as opposed to like an all-star team with the same skill.
Instead of 5 Michael Jordans, you need Jordan, Pippen, and Dennis Rodman. You need them all to be able to do all the things. King, what is one mistake or failure that you've made along your journey that our people can learn from, a lesson that you learned from a failure in your life that our people can learn from and avoid that same trap?
Yeah, I guess the short answer is, cut your losses, or I haven't cut my losses early enough in some of the like early ventures that I did. I mean, this is the same thing as in investment, right? So when you research and you found this amazing, tech company that just went IPO, you're just so passionate and fixated about it, right? So you bet on it. I mean, the stock price went up. You didn't take a profit. You went down, and you didn't cut a loss, right? I really believe them. It's a great story, and the stock prices keep going up, keep going down, right? So somehow, just like investment, you have to basically set your stop loss. So if it doesn't work, you have to pivot, or you have to move on to the next thing.
Yeah. King, this has been such a pleasure. I mean, knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb. You're sharing stuff for the whole audience to be able to understand from what should they be thinking about when they're pitching their business, to what should they be thinking about when they're getting started, to opportunities in the space of fintech. I think there's so much to go back in here. But before we wrap up, one thing to get your last thoughts on, what would you share with this audience about the work you're doing at InvestHK? What do they need to know? Where should they be going? How should they start thinking about ways to expand to Hong Kong? The floor is yours. What does this next generation entrepreneur audience need to know about the work you're doing?
Well, first of all, Hong Kong is always open for business. And again, we understand that a lot of times when entrepreneurs and great talent, the audience are looking to go to the foreign country, a foreign market, it's a scary thought, right? Well, I don't know the people. I'm not sure whether it's going to play or not. We understand all this and all this psychology. So that's why when we put the fast track program together, it's almost like a free trial. It's like free trial kind of setup, right? Like it's so common in the US, particularly in the internet space, right? Try it out. So by just participating in the fast track program, there's no commitment, there's no fee. But then we have already lined up all these financial institutions, right? The HSBC, the Standard Chartered, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, AIA, Manulife, you name it. So now we have recruited over 70 major corporations. These are the ready buyers.
Wow.
Okay, so these are the ones that I asked them, oh, by the way, are you willing to open your wallets if we present to you the right fintechs? They said, yes. If this is the right fintech, yeah, we got the checkbook ready. So it's a great place to basically shorten the whole selling cycle, to have direct access to companies you might otherwise spend 18 months to pitch to or 24 months to pitch to. Yeah. For us, it's merely six weeks that you can really talk to all these potential clients. So that's a very attractive proposition. Now, secondly, we also line up a bunch of investors, from angels to VCs, family offices, corporate ventures. So essentially, all these guys, again, they're ready investors. Okay, so from smaller checks would be something like 100,000 US, $500,000 US, bigger checks, like 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, and so on. So we basically map out the whole sort of like funding spectrum too, by inviting different investors to join our program. So they're all there waiting for the smart people to come in. We'll match them, and then off they go.
Wow. I'm like, I might open a fintech business myself just so that I can get involved in this. I mean, you guys are, I think, doing such incredible work that all of the next generation needs to be thinking about, because you're lining up the people for them to talk to. You're giving them that free trial so that they can expand at a way that just test it out. Like you said, see if it fits with your business idea. And now you have clients you could potentially talk to, investors that potentially want to invest, and your business can explode overnight by doing some incredible work with incredible people like yourself, King. So thank you so much, man, for everything that you've shared on this podcast. This has been an absolute joy to have you here on Mentor Momentum with NextGen HQ.
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a great conversation.
That was Mentor Momentum, sharing life and business lessons from incredible leaders. Looking for more momentum? Subscribe to our weekly Momentum newsletter at nextgenhq.com and check out our other podcast, Momentum Audio, on any of your favorite podcast channels. Now that's momentum.